All right, Pat Narduzzi held his weekly press conference yesterday, a little affair in the South Side, 22 minutes or so of entertainment and enlightenment. Depending on how you want to define those words, I think we could find definitions that fit into all of it. But I had some points of contention with a few things that Pat Narduzzi said yesterday, 3 or 4 topics in particular. I'm going to let you hear from Narduzzi on a few of those topics, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, I'm going to tell you a variety of things. Partially how he could have said certain things better, partially how I think he's misguided on a few things, and just generally going to respond to a few comments Pat Narduzzi made, a few statements he made yesterday that I think just need some further examination. So that's what we're going to do here on the Morning Pit on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's Tuesday. It's the Morning Pit. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know the deal. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you don't miss any of our Pit video content. We have Morning Pit videos here Monday through Friday. We have our weekly live show every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. We'll be doing that tomorrow night. Me and Jim Hammett will get together with you to talk a little Pitt sports for an hour on a Wednesday night. We have our post-game shows that we do after every game. Those are always lively and interesting, win or lose. Certainly that was the case after the Wake Forest game. It was the case after the Louisville game. It's going to be the case after the Notre Dame game for sure. No matter what happens in the game, you're going to want to come and hang out here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the Panther-Lair post-game. So make sure you tune in for that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our videos, any of our live streams or anything like that, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and turn on notifications so you get an alert sent right to your phone every time we go live. That way you don't have to worry about missing it. So many times people say, oh, I forgot you had a live stream, or oh, I got to remember to catch that next time. We'll take some of the guesswork out of it for you. Turn on notifications, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and turn on the notifications, and you will get an alert so you know when we're going live. You don't have to miss any of our live streams. Those are the fun things we do. Some of the most fun that we do, win or lose, having those conversations after the game. So we'd like to have you join us. I think that would be a lot of fun. So tune in. Also, of course, the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. All day, every day, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Okay, so Pat Narduzzi press conference yesterday. He holds his weekly press conference every Monday at noon in the South Side, and that was certainly the case yesterday. I was down there, posted updates and notes on the message board as the press conference went on. Put the video up right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You could catch that. We had it post about an hour or so after the press conference. And so if you wanted to watch it for yourself and you wanted to catch up, we had the transcript we posted online, of course, as well, and all those different things. And as is typical, it's not like there was major news broken during that press conference. There weren't huge things that, boy, we had to run out and scramble. There were no season-ending injuries announced or anything like that. It was pretty run-of-the-mill as far as that goes, but there were just a handful of things that Pat Narduzzi talked about yesterday that he touched on that I just didn't care for it. Just didn't sit well with me as I listened to a few of the things. And so I thought, there's like 3, maybe 4 topics, depending on if we have time for it, that I want to talk about here. That I want you to hear Narduzzi's quote, and then we can talk about what he's saying, why he's saying it, maybe what he should have said in some instances, and just generally respond to it. So we're going to start with penalties. And this was one of the first questions that Pat Narduzzi got. I guess the first question he got yesterday was about slide. And Christian Bayer's slide and all that. But after a couple questions about that, there was a question about penalties. And so I'm going to let you hear the question about the penalties and kind of move forward from there and let you listen to Pat Narduzzi's response. And then we'll talk. I'm trying to get the levels balanced out here so it doesn't get super loud or super quiet. But just know that if you have to turn the volume up on the Narduzzi part, turn it back down because I'm going to start talking again after he answers his question. So this is Pat Narduzzi yesterday talking about penalties.
Pat, you guys had 13 penalties for 100 yards, but now beyond just this game, you guys have the most penalties, the most penalty yards in the ACC. What do you guys have to do as coaches and your players to fix that?
But sometimes you feel hated on.
Hold up, stop right there. Stop. Stop. Stop.
Sometimes you feel hated on.
Sometimes you feel hated on. This is the first response after you've been called for 13 penalties in a game. After you gave Wake Forest 101 yards. Wake Forest, who had like something like the number 85 total offense in the country entering the game, and you gave them 101 yards. And the first response to a question about being charged with 13 penalties for 101 yards is sometimes you feel hated on. Pitt ranks number 124 in the nation in penalties per game. There's only 3 teams, 3 FBS teams. I just poked myself in the eye. Ow, that hurt. There's only 3 FBS teams in the country who average more penalties per game than Pitt does right now. And your response is sometimes you feel hated on. Pitt has committed more penalties or been charged with more penalties than every team on its schedule except for 2. 5 out of 7 games, they have been charged with more penalties. They gave Wofford 62 yards on 7 penalties. They gave West Virginia 65 yards on 9 penalties. They gave Carolina. Drake May doesn't need any yards from you. You gave Drake May 84 yards of penalties. You gave Louisville 87. You gave Virginia Tech 68. You gave Wake Forest 101 yards in penalties. And the first thought is, sometimes you feel hated on.
Sometimes you feel hated on.
We're going to listen to the rest of the quote. But let's have some accountability. Accountability, please. Sometimes you feel hated on.
Sometimes you feel hated on, okay? And I don't share these with you. Weekly about what goes into the ACC office, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to talk about what comes back, but sometimes you feel like it just needs to be called both ways, and sometimes you feel like it's not as a coach, but I'll just talk about our penalties. I brought a sheet in here just because we talk about it all the time. Defensively, we had 4 aggressive penalties and 2 selfish. You guys know what we call selfish penalties when it's just like it's just not good selfish. The 2 by Donovan, who's apologized 10 times to me since the end of the game. He's crying after the game. I mean, he didn't mean to do it. He's just pulled a guy off the pile. It was a penalty. What he did. I don't know if the second one was real. It looked like someone threw a shoulder into him, but like I'm not the official. Players play, coaches coach, and officials officiate. We had 3 defensive holdings, which again, to me, it's a go both ways. I just I don't know how to officiate it. I don't know how to coach anymore. I guess. And we had a face mask. Offensively, we had 5 false starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 false starts. Again. One is, we weren't going to run a play on 4th down and 5, okay? But the receiver covered up the tight end his hand down. Not worried about that one. That one, you can throw that out. And the penalty yards. We're going to punt it. We're taking a delay game anyway. We're going to try to get it to jump off sides. We had, 3 offensive tackles go off sides. 2 young guys, you just got to be better there. And then we have, a quarterback's got to wait for a receiver to get set up, to line up on a quick. We call it, I won't tell you what it's called. When we come out, have a quick get lined up and run the play. It's on really the quarterback not letting the receiver get lined up fast enough. And then we took a delay game on defense to punt the ball, or on punt, just to back it up. We're going to snap it in. We ate up 25, 30 seconds off the clock that play. We had a guy in a new position lined up off the line of scrimmage on our field goal team. So they're unforced, they're unfortunate. And then there's some, aggressive ones, which we're going to be aggressive. I've just never seen so many of them. So I don't know what else to tell you.
How did you coach your players to fight through, to stay focused? If that's the case, you feel like you're not getting both ways in those calls. How do you coach them to stay focused despite those moments?
Well, I think that's what they've done. I mean, and again, you can't get emotional like Donovan did, and it's an emotional game, and he's trying to protect them. It's like just stay away. But besides the emotional one there on one play, which cost us 21 yards, you just got to keep your cool and play ball. I don't think our guys get emotional when what happens to them. I mean, you go back and watch AJ Woods. I mean, he's on there. It's a tiny little tug, and the guy is jamming. And supposedly, when you lock your arm out, it's supposed to be called as offensive pass interference, but it doesn't get called. So I don't know. But if someone's pushing me off, I'm grabbing on, for dear life too. So,
Does it bother you all this is happening in the 7th game of the season.
Bothers me when it happens in the first game and the 7th game. It'll bother me even more because the last time I was in Notre Dame, it happened in the whatever game, on a close to middle field. So it bothers me every game.
You figure by now some of these penalties.
You hope so, but every game's a different game on the road, and different stuff is happening to you. People are stemming. I mean, they got a guy clapping on the we're trying to punt the ball. We clap. Cadence is supposed to be a violation. We'll go back and watch their linebacker 45 is clapping. There's no call. I don't know why, but just luck of the draw, I guess.
Seriously, we're going to talk about guys clapping. I started laughing during the press conference. I had to maintain a sense of decorum during the press conference, but I started laughing because we're talking about guys clapping and how that should be a violation, how that should be called. Matt Galambos clapped during the Penn State game in 16. Remember that? It was a big deal. James Franklin made a big deal about it, and Pat Narduzzi laughed it off. And now we're going to talk about how Wake Forest didn't get called for clapping. This is where we're at. We're talking about sometimes you feel hated on. We're talking about it needs to be called both ways. And then he proceeds to break down the penalties and basically brush them off. The two selfish penalties, yeah, he can't really say, well, he doesn't really agree with the second one, even though I think if you watch the clip, I don't even think I don't know if the Wake Forest player put his shoulder into Donovan McMillan as much as he was in the way when Donovan McMillan was trying to walk, and McMillan bumped into him and turned around and shoved him, which of course that's going to get a penalty called. But then, he's talking about the defensive holding calls. I mean, if you're outside of 5 yards, you can't pull a guy's jersey. It's not tough to figure out here. There are rules, and Pat Narduzzi's acting like these rules were not broken. And I understand they do play a physical style of defense, particularly their corners and their safeties. They get physical with the receivers, they get aggressive with the receivers, and they put their hands on them, and that's how they play. And that style of play is going to bring flags, and it always has, and it always will. And there's probably a certain reputation that Pitt has, and they're going to continue having it, and it's going to draw extra attention to them. And refs are going to be watching their corners more, and they're probably going to get more flags, partially because they've got that extra attention on them, and partially because they do it. Why does Pitt get called for so many pass interference penalties? Because they commit a lot of pass interference penalties. But he goes through and sort of breaks them all down, and the false starts, and this false start, it didn't really matter. We weren't going to run a play there either anyway, or this delay of game. Okay, and sure, and there are those delay of game penalties that teams take intentionally. But you had 13 penalties. You had 11 penalties against North Carolina. You had 7 against Wofford, 9 against West Virginia, 8 against Louisville, 9 against Virginia Tech. Count that up. That's 6 out of 7 games, they had at least 7 penalties called on them. And 5 out of 7, they had at least 8 penalties called on them. 4 out of 7, they had at least 9 penalties in 4 out of 7 games. This isn't about the ACC being out to get you. This is about sloppy play and undisciplined play. And while I appreciate Pat Narduzzi doing sort of the rundown there, what he really needed to say was, we're hurting ourselves in a lot of ways. We're not stopping the run on defense. We're not executing consistently on offense. And overall, we're not punting consistently on special teams. And overall, we're shooting ourselves in the foot with these penalties. And we're not good enough to give the other team 100 yards in penalties. And I may or may not agree with all of the calls, but the reality is we need to be more disciplined. We need to be more careful. We need to be more precise in what we do, because every snap matters and every yard matters. That's what he probably should have said. It's not what he said. It's what I would have liked to have heard him say, but that's not what we got, right? All right, so that was the penalty. That was the penalty question. I'm going to bring this next one. I think we're going to talk about the running backs. I think we'll do the running backs. I've got a handful of quotes here that I want to discuss and a handful of things I want to talk about, but I'm not sure which ones I want to get to. Let's talk about the running backs, because the running back situation just largely doesn't make a whole lot of sense with the way it's being used and deployed right now. Sebo Flemister started the last 2 games. Rodney Hammond started 4 games, the Cincinnati, West Virginia, North Carolina, and Virginia Tech games. Flemister started these last 2, Louisville and Wake Forest. He's got the most carries in the last 3 games. He has 46 carries. Rodney Hammond only has 21. Flemister has 173 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus a receiving touchdown in the last 3 games. Rodney Hammond has 69 yards in the last 3. And in this Wake Forest game, Sebo Flemister played like 60 snaps where on offense, according to Pro Football Focus, whereas Rodney Hammond played like 15. What's going on there? And now this week on the depth chart they release it, and it's whereas it had been Rodney Hammond and then Sebo Flemister, it's now Sebo Flemister or Rodney Hammond. So basically the or starters assigned to those 2 backs for the official depth chart, which we know doesn't always mean a whole lot. But heading into the week, heading into the Notre Dame game, that's how they're listed. So what's going on there? Let's see what Narduzzi had to say about the running back situation.
Sebo's been playing well the last couple of weeks, and again, he's also helping lead our football team as far as just being a leader. I think he stepped up with the absence of Mac Gonsalves. He's become a really kind of got some natural leadership skills to him. Our guys have really bought into what he's all about. He plays his tail off. I mean, he'll be on any special team, so he's played hard. Rodney didn't start, but Rodney, he's good too. We like them both. Go with your hot hand, and I think even late in the game, Coach Powell tried to put Rodney in the game, and he's like, "Coach, he's hot, let him go." And he was kind of like, "Whoa." I was kind of shocked by that. Kind of an unselfish move by him, but I would have liked to got him more snaps the other day because I think he's special as well. So we're going to play the hot guy, and maybe Rodney rushes for 150 this week.
It seems like it's been favoring Sebo for a few weeks, though. Is it just it's just been the hot hand for the last 3-4 games?
I mean, it's like anybody in the country. I mean, Notre Dame plays 4 tailbacks. I mean, they play 4 of them, and they all got 20-some plus snaps at tailback, and they got 2 really that are getting the majority of them. And I don't think we're different anyway. You want to get your tailbacks reps. You want to make them all feel comfortable. They all can be, they're all ball players. You never know if you have one tailback that's getting 200 snaps and the other guy gets 3, all of a sudden the first guy gets hurt. You got this guy who never rushed the ball before. We won't have that problem. So I think it's a natural thing. But you're going to play who's hot, who's blocking well, and who you feel comfortable with, based on the flow of the game.
All right, I just don't get this. I don't get the running back situation. I admire the admirable story. I admire the noble story of Rodney Hammond declining to take the field, deferring to Sebo Flemister, who's hot. And I actually asked someone else. I was like, "Come on, this story, what?" And someone else told me, "Yeah, no, I've heard that as well." And so maybe that happened. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. To me, there's only 2 explanations for the running back situation. And there's only two ways to explain it, truthfully. Because I think, and I think anyone around the program would probably agree, that Rodney Hammond is the better back. That Rodney Hammond is the more explosive back, the back who gives the offense the best chance to win. I mean, I think he's proven that over the course of his career at Pitt, that he's the better back. It doesn't make any sense for him not to be getting the bulk of the carries, for him not to be the feature back. And he was, what was it, the West Virginia game, the Carolina game? It was Rodney Hammond. It was heavy Rodney Hammond. And since then, it's been heavy Sebo Flemister. In the last 3 games, I put up those stats, 40-some carries for Flemister, 20-some for Hammond. I mean, he's getting double the workload. There are only 2 explanations for this. Honestly, I mean, there's only 2. As far as I can tell. And one is that Rodney Hammond's hurt. He's dealing with lingering injuries, that they're trying to protect him and help him to recover and try and get him as healthy as possible, that he got the full workloads in some of those games. Let me bring up his stats from, let's see, West Virginia. Hammond carried the ball 14 times. He was Pitt's leading rusher. He had 14 carries. And then he had 14 carries against North Carolina. Again, leading rusher, leading in attempts, leading in yards, and all that. So 28 carries over the course of 2 games. Before that, he had 6 carries against Cincinnati. Remember, Hammond, Flemister, and Daniel Carter all had 6 carries each, but he had 28 carries over the course of those 2 games, and maybe that was too much. Maybe that was too much of a workload. Maybe he re-injured something or had some lingering injury, and so they're trying to protect him. They're leaning heavily on Sibo Flemister until Hammond can be ready to go, and then they'll go with a 2-headed monster and all this stuff. Maybe that's it. That's one possible explanation, and Pat Narduzzi doesn't talk about injuries, so he's gonna talk about a lot of different things. Sibo Flemister playing well, Sibo Flemister being a leader, all these different things. And maybe, and you know, because he's not going to talk about an injury. He's not going to talk about Rodney Hammond being hurt. And I don't want to sit here and speculate about it, but I can't figure this situation out. And that's one possible explanation. And maybe that's it, because the only other possible explanation, at least from where I'm sitting, is pure, good old-fashioned personnel mismanagement. I mean, really, and look, I like Sibo Flemister. I think I've been, one of the bigger supporters of Sibo Flemister, one of the bigger proponents of Sibo Flemister. I talked about it a lot in the offseason of, I thought the one thing the running back room might be lacking was a home run hitter, that explosive guy who could turn, 3 into 10 and 5 into 15 and all those different things, and break those longer runs and extend plays. And I said, well, maybe Flemister could be that guy. I don't think Rodney Hammond's that guy, but maybe Flemister could be that guy. Or maybe Derek Davis, who we still haven't seen at all, which is probably another extension of this conversation, just a tentacle going in a different direction that we're not going to go today. But I've been a proponent of Sibo Flemister, but always with the understanding that Rodney Hammond's the better back. Rodney Hammond should be this team's number 1 back. Rodney Hammond is, I think, and I think a lot of people would agree, is the running back who gives this team the best chance to win. But he's not getting that chance now, and I can't understand why. And I think it's got I can't just believe that Sibo Flemister is the hot hand. How can you even know if Sibo Flemister is the hot hand when Rodney Hammond plays 15 snaps? When Rodney Hammond carries the ball 3 times? 3 times at Wake Forest. How do you even know that he's not the hot hand? Plenty of backs carry the ball, their first 3 carries get like 1 yard. I know, because I'm that guy checking his fantasy team at like 1:12 on a Sunday afternoon and say, why does this guy have any fantasy points yet? Oh, it's because his first 4 carries went for 3 yards or something like that. It's not atypical. And you can't tell me that Rodney Hammond immediately became the not hot hand just because his first few carries didn't get any yards. I can't explain it. Sibo's playing better and he's emerged as a leader. Oh, okay. Rodney Hammond had 3 carries. Rodney Hammond played 15 snaps. It's either injury or mismanagement. And I don't know which one it is. I have my own opinions, but it's one or the other. I don't know. All right. I think we're past 20 minutes. I had like 2 other topics I want to get into, but you know what? Now we've got a Wednesday Morning Pitt already planned out. We'll get a few of the other Narduzzi quotes. There's one in particular. That I gotta put out there that we have to talk about, because it feeds into some things that I talked a lot about yesterday, things I wrote about yesterday on Panther-Lair.com, and just some things that are I think the big issue. And Narduzzi hits it on the head, and I don't even know if he realized that he hit it on the head. I hope he realized that he hit it on the head, because if he did, then he touched on the biggest problem facing this team. So let's talk about that tomorrow. All right, we'll dig into that quote tomorrow. Don't want to use all the goods in one episode, or I would have used all the goods in one episode if we could have got it done in 20 minutes or so. But hey, time went a little bit long. It's okay, because now we got a good conversation for tomorrow. Like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Head over and check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content all day, every day here at YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Totally mix those up. Panther-Lair.com is the website. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com is the video. You want to check them both out if you're a Pitt fan, so you don't miss any Pitt content. All right, thanks for tuning in today. Hope your week is off to a good start. Hope you have a good Tuesday, and we will catch up with you tomorrow on the Morning Pitt right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.